Hey guys, this is Vijay again from Deep Insights in Tech. So in the last video, I told you that I was going to return the phone and I was going to get the 256 GB version. And today I'm going to talk about that and what happened in my experience. So I went back to the store and again I looked at the phones and it was like it was nice and I definitely needed the storage space more because I have a lot of very large music files and it does take up a lot of memory. Okay, so yes, so they brought the phone out and I told you that this old one was like very heavy and it was really, I remember very distinctively that it was so heavy that it was kind of hurting my hands too. That's why I kept over and over saying that wow, this is heavy, this is heavy. Guess what? I used the same cover I had. I've replaced it right now, so you don't see the cover right now. I returned it. I got this very nice case from Amazon, very thin, and it's the same ESR case which I got for my iPhone 10 as well. So I know that this is pretty good. So it's an ESR case in case you are interested. And it is, as you can see, it is super thin, very light, and at least it is better than not having anything. So it gives some protection, but not as good as the old case. So the first thing I noticed was that why is this light? It doesn't make any sense. But every time I have tested it, I've tried it out before, right before they got out the new phone, it was so heavy. And the minute I use this one, it is so light. So I'm not entirely sure what is going on there. Is there really a weight difference between the phone? I don't know. All I can say for sure is that the new phone, the 256 GB version, is definitely lighter than the old phone. I'm not sure what is going on with that. Now the other thing is that I have a bit more information about the whole Verizon iPhone upgrade program and all the problems along with that. So this is what it is. And I didn't know this because if you buy the phone for the full price, then you don't have to deal with this. But it sort of does make sense from Verizon's perspective why you have that problem. So what is going on is that when you use the iPhone upgrade program, they sort of lock your SIM card because obviously they want to make sure you're paying the 24-month fee in between. And what is happening is that don't try to use your old SIM card. So if you're going to go with the iPhone upgrade program, whether you are getting a new phone or whether you are going for the iPhone upgrade program for the very first time, don't go with the old SIM card because it won't work because they lock the SIM card which came with the phone. So always go with the SIM which came with it. And the second thing is that if you want to save time and not spend the 1 hour I spent at the Apple store, make sure that you erase your watch as well because it locks the watch as well and that will prevent you from using the Verizon upgrade program. So what you need to do is before you give your old phone to them, obviously you erase your phone, but you also erase your Apple Watch because this is tied to that SIM card. And so once you do that, it will immediately take effect and you will be able to use the next phone easily. Otherwise, what's going to happen is that you're going to give them the phone, they're going to give you a new phone, and if you want to get back on the upgrade program, it won't let you because it is just not going to reset the old one, basically cancel the old one. So we had to call Verizon and the Apple Store guy had to speak with them and explain the situation and then to reset it. But even while we were talking to them, we just realized that hey, just reset the watch, and then it was easy for us to do that. So it is great. I would highly recommend using a thin case with it in case you think that there's a problem with using the phone because it is very hard when it is really heavy. It already is heavy. Battery life is definitely better. A lot of storage space that is really good. And yes, this phone is faster than the 64 GB one. I think it has to do with the fact that if you notice, when you go with more memory, if you can search for it online, I don't know the specific details, but the more storage you have, the faster the more controllers they have, and I think there is more bandwidth. So which is why it runs much faster than the 64 GB one. Now you may think that, hey, that is because you had filled up the 64. That's not true. The 64 GB phone did have 20 GB free. It still was slow. This has like 128 or even more than 100 GB free because it's 256 GB obviously. So I don't think it is just that. That is definitely a lot, very much faster than the 64 GB phone. And I do notice the improved antenna. They talk about that the new models have improved antenna. It is true. The places I take this phone where the coverage was spotty before, the internet didn't used to work, on this phone it does work very well. Just remember, as I said, that remember to erase your phone, and if you have a cellular connection on your watch, remember to erase that. And when you erase it, there is an option: keep the plan, because otherwise you have to go and set that up all over again, and you know all this. You don't want to deal with that problem. Now, the last thing I would like to say is that why did I go with the Verizon Upgrade program? Because you don't have to start a new loan with anybody else. It's a hassle. I highly recommend not doing that. Citizens Bank or whatever. Don't go with the iPhone upgrade program from Apple. You don't want to create a new credit, whatever. And it will come with your Verizon bill, and you can pay towards it, and you can reduce the monthly payment. That is really good, because this time when I got it, I paid $150 more. And so my payment has gone down from $22 to $20. So then I don't think that I will ever need more storage than 256 GB. So I'll probably keep the same price phone when they upgrade it the next time. And I do want to note one more thing. You really don't need to upgrade this unless you are like me. And I am like the guy who gets a lot of emails and people calling me for support for my job. So I need my phone to be fast, have a lot of storage, because I will download a lot of OneDrive and Box.com files. I need a phone which is fast and with a lot of storage. But I know others who have the iPhone 7. It's perfectly fine. iPhone 7 128 GB, it still works fine. You just need to upgrade your battery. And once you upgrade the battery, I can tell you for sure it runs faster. So if you think your old phone is slow, just upgrade the battery. Unfortunately, you can't get that $30, $29 upgrade for the battery anymore, but it's still worth upgrading the battery, and you probably won't need to upgrade the phone. There are cases where this guy doesn't change the flip when I do this and do that. That is one problem. The other problem is sometimes Face ID is a little glitchy. I miss the home button. It is good, but what I'm trying to say is that the Face ID may not be such a great reason for you to upgrade, unless you like the latest and greatest. Because there are times when it is glitchy and you don't really like it, and you miss the old one. So there is one more thing I guess we can discuss before we end this video, which is about Android and iOS. It's actually it's a very interesting thing to discuss, because both have its own strengths and advantages. And I'm open. I know many people who just won't switch. They just have decided to hate it. But I always keep trying to use both operating systems and see which one I like. Paradoxically, what I think is that iOS is great for home, iOS is great for business, anything critical, where you need to make sure that nothing is, getting broken, getting crashed. If you want reliability, in a little bit, I would say almost in a boring way, boring reliability, because for the things which really matter, I think I would go with iOS. But Android over the years has gotten better and better, but I think that it is to me it is a little bit more exciting. It is for things where you don't mind that it hangs and crashes and it's slow, but somehow it gives you a little bit more flexibility. By that what I mean is that there are a lot of things you can change, which is what everybody says about Android, but I really like the experience of the Galaxy S8, honestly speaking. And what you ideally want to do is to use Apple for all your critical stuff and use Android for everything else, which is like home, watching videos and stuff like that, where it doesn't matter even if things hang. And so this is why at the beginning of the last video, I had mentioned that I have this interesting distinction between, I have all the tablets, I have Android, and I really like it. I like that whatever it gives me, even though it doesn't give me that picture perfect experience of iOS, which is good, but after some time it does tend to get a little bit boring, honestly speaking. While in Android there is always an excitement of, oh, you could do this, oh, you could do that, oh, you could like that could work this way too. That flexibility is definitely good. In the long run though, what I would say is that I have tried over the years, every few years I try to go and try to make Android my primary phone, and like the last time I used the Galaxy S8, I used it for a long time. I used it for a lot of months. What always gets me though is that how near perfection it is, and how sad it is that uh, despite being like almost there, it's not there. It's like it doesn't make much sense, right? Like Samsung has the best phone hardware, well, Google has the best software, and they just don't have this. That's the problem. They just don't have one device where you have both the best hardware and the best software. And to me, it's more realistic that Samsung could do it because they already have the hardware, which is probably more harder to do. And all they have to do is to give a real pure Android experience. I think even if it means that Google stops doing the pixels and they do a Samsung Pixel, I think that really makes sense, because when I went to the Galaxy S8, that's what I really missed. I missed the pure Android experience. And it's just that, a lot of it just seems to be marketing. The more you use the phone, the worse it got. While in the case of the iOS, it's not like that. The more you use it, the more it's very consistent. It's almost like the Nokia phones of the past, where whatever works works. This is very rarely you see that there is a problem. Even though just after iOS 11 and before iOS 12 was released, things did get pretty bad. I've seen cases where this icon would go half outside the screen and I had to bring it back. That has never happened before. Oh, that was really bad. But that is what it really is. Truthfully speaking, I know a lot of people, like for example in developing countries, right? They say that, oh yeah, Android phones are cheaper, so they use it. But it's also true that a lot of people who use the Android phones, they think it's too complicated, and so they never really use it. And the first time these people actually start using a smartphone in a smart way, it's actually an Apple phone. That is why that there is so much they can expand in countries like India and China, because the biggest advantage Apple has is not the hardware. It is the software. There is no doubt about it. Because the hardware is expensive. Very often times better hardware means more expense, and that always limits your market, right? How do you go from being a $1 trillion company to even more? Is that you somehow need to find a way in which you can make more people get the phone. And I think what they really need to do is make budget hardware, but use that software. The software is really good. I mean, there are people, I'm really surprised. Like somebody who was using an Android phone for 5 years, never really used the phone, hated the smart features, got his first iPhone, an iPhone 4, iPhone 5, whatever it was. And then for the very first time started using email, started using WhatsApp, started using Facebook Messenger. These people's, the primary experience of these people to go into the internet is through the iPhone. And that is where all the promise lies, I mean, you think that, like, why would somebody buy an iPad when you could buy a laptop? The truth of the matter is that, honestly speaking, this is all for developing countries, right? From developing countries, you think of this, you might think, yeah, I don't need an iPad. But think of somebody who's never used a computer before, who just doesn't like to use a typical Mac OS or Windows. The Apple iOS on the iPad is probably the most user-friendly computer operating system they have ever used. So it's not a matter of whether it can do something or not. It is the matter of the fact that it is making it more accessible to people. So what they really need to do is to actually make budget hardware, and what they're doing with the iPad is great. That iPad prices have come down, and start selling it as a computer in some of these places, because that is where it starts. It should be around the price of an entry level computer in some of these places, that people can start buying iPads instead of buying these, buying a regular computer. And not only will they find it easier to use, but they'll actually use more services. They'll actually be able to get online, and then there's a whole new world out there. And that is the biggest advantage of the whole Apple ecosystem right now. Just the whole simplicity of it. From that perspective, I guess simplicity is better than flexibility. And then eventually, when those same people learn enough and then they want something more powerful and the simple becomes boring, well, they can try the first Android phone at that time, which will be crashing and whatever, but it will, and it will be laggy. But by then they are kind of like, okay, I know sort of how it works, how it is going to be, and then they can just, start using it. And then after that, the computer and stuff like that. So that, I think, is the whole answer behind how smartphones can really proliferate beyond what they have. I think it has reached a saturation point, which is why the sales have gone down. Doesn't excite a lot of people anymore. Now they need to go for the people who are below, who are not even able to afford the phone like this. It's just too expensive. It makes no sense to buy a $1,200, $1,500 phone like this, because a good chunk of the population in the world today, they can't afford this phone, and so and it's hard for somebody living in the spaceship campus in Cupertino to even imagine something like an experience which somebody like that would be able to buy. They're already there. Here's the sad thing: with the software, you're already there. All you need to do is make a budget hardware. It doesn't necessarily need to be an experience which sucks. Honestly speaking, doesn't need to have all the bells and whistles. Just a regular phone which can do internet, which is not too slow, and without the Face ID, without a lot of these things which make it expensive. Just a really, really good phone with that software, with a lot of things may not be there because of the cost. I think it can really sell, and that is what they really need to do. And maybe they think that one way of doing that is by using some of the old models of the phone, but maybe it's not really. It's still too expensive. So that's what I think about the whole Android, iOS wars, and smartphones, dumb phones. The reason why smartphones are, people are not buying them that much anymore. The answer is somewhere else. The answer is not at the top end of the spectrum anymore. Even the phone, right? I don't really believe that you need to keep making the phones bigger. I think what really needs to happen is the phone needs to be something small, which you can easily hold in your hand. And what they should do, in my opinion, is to have another device, which is somewhere between the XS Max and the iPad. A little bit still easier, very, very super lightweight like the iPad Pro. And you just keep this in your pocket or whatever, keep this in a place connected to the Wi-Fi network. And say when you are home or when you are don't want to carry the phone around or whatever, just use that other device for the bigger screen. The primary device doesn't need to keep getting bigger, because I don't think that's the answer. The answer might be that the primary device is something which keeps all the information and it communicates to something else, like the Apple Watch. This is amazing, but much bigger. And so it's a companion device. We need to make more companion devices. This is a great product, but we need something like this, something more like this. Now you gone smaller, so it can do some things. We need something on the bigger end of the spectrum too, which doesn't need to be the complete duplication of the phone, but which can talk to this guy and still run faster, but use this as a data store or something like that. That would be something interesting to see. So that's about it. We'll talk about the laptops in our next video. Until then, bye. Signing off is again Vijay from Deep Insights in Tech. Thank you. Bye.